episode 150. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How's it going, Dave? I've been, in a cabin for the last, 3-4 days in Wisconsin, so I've been very disconnected from the world. So...
You went to Wisconsin?
Yeah,
Sorry.
We went as far as, if we wanted to go to Mall of America, it would have been, an hour drive, which is in Minnesota. So we went, deep into Wisconsin. Turns out, Wisconsin... pretty trees, but that's about it. There's really nothing going on in Wisconsin.
I've been there a couple times. It's not very much better than anything else.
It's definitely,
especially for you. You're born and raised in Chicago, right?
Yes, yeah, just a straight up city. So going into Wisconsin,
you're not even a suburbanite.
How dare you even mention suburbanite? But yeah, no, I went to Wisconsin in a cabin for the weekend. Really nice. We did some game hunting on the way there, so I picked up some random games because turns out games are cheap in Wisconsin compared to what they are in Chicago. So I ended up spending $200 on video games on the way to a cabin, even though I couldn't play any of the video games at the cabin. I just looked at the manuals as I continue to collect all my PS3 games. But yeah, so Wisconsin, not much there, but the trees are pretty.
All right, so obviously it's episode 150, which is somewhat of a number milestone for everybody else, but for us, it's something that
Humble
it's
Midwest
just 150
boys.
episodes. Yeah, I think with the other day, if you look at what's on Simplecast, I think we're up to 171 or 172 or something like that, with all the additional content and extra things that we've spoiler cast or E3 recaps or showcases and anything non-numbered that's over 20 episodes. So. We'll probably spend more time talking about it around November 1st when we turn 3. So I think that's a little bit more of a bigger deal for us is November 1st. But anyways, thank you guys for listening. 150 episodes if you've been here the whole time. We appreciate it. If this is your first time here, please consider subscribing and hanging out. Join the community. Check the links in the show notes to Facebook, Discord, Twitter. Check that stuff out. If you want to get some stuff from Teesprings, we do have a Teespring store. Shirts and hoodies are there. We're going to mess with some stuff again as we get near the 3-year anniversary. So if you want to buy some of that stuff now, please do. But there might be some newer, cooler, different stuff, maybe. I don't know. We're still figuring it out. And like I said, everything else is linked in the show notes. We are live on Twitch, twitch.tv/digitaldaysgaming, where you can subscribe to us on Twitch if you'd like to. If you link your Twitch and your Amazon accounts together, you get Prime Gaming. Prime Gaming allows you a free sub to the streamer of your choice. If you want to use that on us, that's super, super helpful. Numbers have fluctuated around up and down, so if you could consider just logging in on your mobile app and subscribing if possible, that is super, super helpful. Other than that, leaving a review helps the show grow. If you leave it with words, more people might read it and see it, and that helps as well. So we're going to jump into the news.
Yeah, a lot of money talk this week, which me and Dave kind of love probably too much because neither one of us truly know how business works in terms of this scale and size, but it's still fun to talk about. The first bit of news is Meta has acquired 3 studios. They have acquired Camouflage, Armature Studio, and Twisted Pixel. So the Oculus Quest is obviously their platform, and Oculus Quest is their platform, but their big platform is the metaverse. Which we don't quite know.
They hope their big platform is the metaverse.
Yes, so they are now acquiring actual studios that make video games to try and bolster whatever the metaverse is going to become for them, and also to help out the Quest, which it's continuously doing well, basically, but it's not set the world on fire, if that's a fair assumption. But yeah, so just to go over some of these studios in case you aren't too familiar with them. Camouflage is a Seattle studio with a Halo creative director and Metal Gear Solid producer at the helm, and they are responsible for Iron Man VR, which came out now 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
Something like that. 2.5, 3 years. Yeah. Considered to be a very good, arguably maybe the best Iron Man IP.
Iron Man video game, probably by a long shot. Then they have Armature Studio, which is a Texas-based studio that was founded by Metroid Prime franchise developers. And they recently developed the Resident Evil 4 VR that is currently, I believe, on Quest, and it is coming to VR2 next year. And then Twisted Pixel was the other Texas-based studio they acquired, and they're the developers behind The Maw and Splosion Man. So we love ourselves some acquisitions. This is one that I don't even think we were accounting for, Facebook buying studios, but it makes sense for them to do that as they bolster their metaverse.
Yeah. And I guess the good thing about this is that these are VR-centric studios.
Yes.
So and they're building it for their, Oculus or whatever.
The Quest, yeah.
The Quest, yeah. So like that's fine, like and I would assume that these are going to be exclusive to the Quest, because they own them and it's all part of the metaverse thing. Mm-hmm. So like that's fine. Stability for any studio that makes VR is great. Stability for knowing what platform you need to make it for is great, versus I can't imagine like what you're trying a VR developer of thinking, okay, what about the low end PC and what about the mid tier PC and the high tier PC versus okay, just put it on PlayStation and these are the benchmarks that we have to hit. So now they know here's the benchmarks for the Quest, because the Quest is like a freestanding essentially self-sustained unit, right?
Yes, yeah, it is now.
Yeah. So, like, this is like they know what their benchmarks are. This is stability for the studio. They know what they're going to be making and who they're working for. So, like, that's great. Instead of them having to pitch the game and, like, Oculus wants it, but PSVR doesn't, or PSVR wants it and Oculus doesn't. Oh, so now there's, like, the development changes. All that's gone, and it's out the window. If they make something cool and you like it, go buy a Quest.
Yeah, basically. This at least solidifies that, like, Meta is interested in continuing with Quest. Like, Quest is successful enough that they're like, okay, PlayStation, Xbox are buying up studios left and right. PlayStation is going to release a Quest competitor, a true competitor for the Quest, I would say, like a true VR competitor. Because
being attached to another $500 box, though.
But it at least is more in line with what they're doing, because
correct. Yep.
PSVR has always been like low tier. Now we're going to have like a higher tier in terms of visual fidelity. So it's basically Meta being like, you know what? We got to grab some studios because there might not be any left. Especially when we're talking about VR studios, there hasn't been a major like VR AAA studio. So for the most part, VR studios are kind of affordable. We are still talking about a lot of money, but affordable compared to like a Bungie or anyone else.
I also think the opportunity for these studios to become AAA studios increases with their attachment to whether it's Sony or Meta, because like I mentioned, now they know like what they have to develop for. They don't have to think about PC, Quest, PSVR. Like they make games for Quest.
And when you become first party, the first party you would imagine wants to put the best foot forward for all their first party titles, and that includes making sure you give those studios whatever time and money they need to
or what they want to make.
Yes,
because now they can make a pitch to the people that own them, or they already made a pitch to Quest, and Quest is like, yep, we like it. Facebook, Meta, we like it. We want to buy you because we want you to make ABC. And so they that's all dealt with during the purchasing, and now versus, okay, we need to make something that's going to appeal to all three of these platforms to hope that one of them decides to publish for us.
Yeah,
like
and in the case of Meta, they don't own any IP, so they're not going to force like you got to make this, that you got to make Mark Zuckerberg fishing. Like that's not going to happen. They're going to hopefully let these studios just pitch their idea and not force anything on them unless Meta buy some IPs, which is totally possible. It could happen.
But I think the potential is there. This is like what, a $300, $400 machine standalone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, if they can make some cool stuff that works great and runs great, like I've seen a lot more, talk around around Quest than I have around any other VR stuff currently.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay, Dave, let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's get into money talk and subscription service talk, which I know some people absolutely love when we talk about this. But there's also a lot of people that love when this information comes out. So
you get more of my Dave math. Watch my terrible Dave math.
Yeah, the Dave math is fantastic. And you're going to get me reading video game websites breaking down financial reports, which sometimes does not go well, which makes me think I should have pulled up the SC filing myself. Okay, so Ark which is funny. I never could remember the studio's name. It's Studio Wildcard. Ark Survival Evolve. The developers are doing SEC filings. I guess their publisher or whatever is, going to make some sort of move, which means they have to publish this information to the SEC. Mm-hmm. And we got some numbers. So the first number that we have is Ark Survival Evolved hit PlayStation Plus in March 2022. And in order to do that, PlayStation paid the developers $3.5 million to be a PS Plus game, which is a number we rarely hear like what PlayStation pays companies.
What PlayStation pays. We've heard tons of rumors of what Xbox pays, going back to like Outriders allegedly being like in the 20 millions, I believe, or 25 million or something.
Something like that, yeah. Some crazy number. But we never hear like what PlayStation is paying for their games to be on Plus, and we know that it's a custom deal based on the type of game. So Ark Survival Evolved was able to get $3.5 million to be featured as a PlayStation Plus game in March. We also found out, this one's a little bit more complicated. It's hard to quantify everything because we only have like half the information. But in June 2020, Microsoft extended their previous agreement with Ark to have, or with the publisher of Ark, to have Ark on Game Pass basically permanently. They paid them, I just had that number. I got to go back to my notes. $2.5 million to have Ark Evolved forever on there. And then they paid an additional $3.5 million to get the sequel to Ark, the Vin Diesel game, on Game Pass for 3 years once that releases. So $3.5 million over the course of 3 years, or upfront, obviously, to have the sequel on there when the sequel releases. So we have those numbers on there. But they paid $2.5 million for the first game to be on Game Pass, basically, in perpetuity. And that doesn't include whatever they paid for them originally to get it on Game Pass. Because it sounds like it was originally like a 6-month deal. Because that's what they were doing kind of at the time in Game Pass. So we finally got a little bit of some numbers. So Dave, what do you think of some of these numbers? I know a lot of people are saying like, why did PlayStation overpay? But there's reasoning.
That's the first part that's the funny math that I'm having a little bit of a hard time with. So like, you know me, I like to round things. So let's say 2.5 million for Ark. Like we know it's 2.5 million for Ark permanently go forward. And then we know they're paying, let's just call it says 2.3, but let's call it another 2.5 million for the new Ark, for the sequel from the studio. Mm-hmm. So like you're up to 5 million right there. Yeah. So let's talk about Ark at launch for 6 months, and like I don't even know. Let's use I'm gonna go high for Xbox, higher than the 3.5 million for PS Plus, and I'll explain why in a second. So if I had to guess, again, rough funny math, Microsoft invested $10 million into this company to have Ark on there for 6 months, and then have Ark on there permanently, and then to have the next game the studio makes. Yeah. Does that sound fair and logical to you?
Yeah, I would imagine they got a deal cut because they're giving them so much money in advance for a sequel that's not out.
Correct.
Yet.
So, I mean, I'm probably being a little bit, maybe I'm being a little low on how much it costs for the 6-month deal based on this. Now, the problem that I'm running into and I'm having is that we hear it all the time, like, oh, look at Microsoft paying so much money for all these games to have on there just to increase their, to increase their library. They can't be making money. And again, even in here, you'll talk later in another news story. I'm not talking profits. I don't know how much they're profiting. I don't know how much it costs.
And they will not tell us that.
Yeah. So, but the problem that I have with this in comparison, and this is going to be anti-Sony when I say this, so I'm preparing everybody for this right now, is that the counter is Sony pays Ark $3.5 million for 31 days.
Yes.
Yeah. 31 days. Like, it's plus for March of 2022, and then in April it's gone. Like, granted, most of there's a ton of Plus users. I would love to see the download rate or the attach rate for PS Plus on a month by month basis. I would love to see that number, because if I had to guess, it's lower than whatever number you're thinking in your head right now. Yeah, you holding your steering wheel, it's lower than what you think, because you're probably thinking 75, 80, and I'm thinking more like 20%.
No, I don't think it's that low, but I think
of overall attachment rate of PS Plus users downloading their Plus games every month? Like, what do you think it is?
I would probably say it's like 40. I would say it's less than half, I would say. Are we talking about they download all of the Plus games or just the ones they're interested in?
Just attach rate, overall attach rate.
Yeah,
So
like
you're talking about, what are we talking about, 3
game,
games?
Like from Plus
But we're talking usually 3 games a month, right? Rough math.
Yeah.
So 12 times 3 is 36. How many of those 36 games are being downloaded by an active Plus member?
Yeah, I would say...
12?
I would say like...
A third?
I would say...
So 30%, 40%?
Yeah, 40, maybe 60 is a high, but I don't see it going anywhere past that.
I'm just talking about overall, if Sony releases 36 games a year on PS Plus, like what attach rate is it? And I would assume some people forget they have it. Some people forget to go into the store. Like, I get those notifications on my phone, and like if you follow, like the majority of your active users are in the know when they know what's going on.
Or
but
they
that's
just
that's the minority though. Like that's the minority of that.
Well,
what's the last number we saw? Like 55 million PS Plus users,
something like that. Or I think it dipped just below 50 million because everyone's dipped. But it's definitely something I noticed when I worked at Target and Best Buy. Is like there'd be people that are gonna buy a game, and I totally were like, yo, this is a Plus game this month, and if people would be like, what's that? It's just like,
right.
Don't you have Plus? Do you play online? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, then you have Plus. Go into the store, hit the Plus icon, and then this game's a free download. And that happens frequently.
That's the scary part, though, is that like Sony's giving somebody $3.5 million for 31 days.
Yeah, which I know.
Microsoft gave somebody $10 million for 2 games forever.
Well,
2 games.
One forever.
One forever, one for 6 months.
Yeah. Which and I see people that's what they're jumping to. Of just like, wow, PlayStation's kind of overpaying for theirs, especially if you compare the $3.5 million for Ark versus the 3-year deal for Ark 2 being 2.3. So they paid less than what the future game is going to be. And I think,
and let's be fair, like Ark's not. I'm probably good. I don't think anybody that listens to this show, Ark's not a marquee title in my opinion. It's up there, but it's not marquee.
It was a couple years ago, probably when this deal was signed. But not when it hit Plus. By the time it hit PlayStation Plus in, let me make sure it is March of this year. Yeah, March 2022. It was on the low end of like its popularity. Right. Like this game was really popular 2 years ago.
Ark's benefiting from the Plus bump and the Game Pass bump as well, because people are checking it out, people are trying it. They might buy something, they might play it some more.
Yeah.
So they get an influx. It's kind of crazy like to think about those numbers. So like. It makes a little bit more sense to me why we're seeing maybe a little bit of a lower quality of Plus titles lately.
Yeah, I can see that. If you're talking about they're having to pay $3.5 million for this, what are they paying for bigger games when those games come
how much?
along?
I don't even know if it's on there, but how much does Tales from the Borderlands cost them, or costed them? Whenever it went on there. And again, sometimes it's a win-win for a developer. Like that's the part that we never know. Of like, hey, you got a sequel coming out in 4 months. Let's get your game on Plus now. Let's get some people playing this game to then hopefully our data shows that this many people download it and then this percentage of them buy it. Oh, okay. Like, and like,
well, it makes sense. Here. Like the Ark developers got that deal of like, yeah, we're just put the first one on Game Pass forever. Here's $2.5 million. They're making the sequel. So they already know like we're going to be sunsetting 1 anyways. Or like the peak of 1 is going to be, that's long gone. Like it doesn't matter. But I kind of understand why PlayStation has to pay as much as they have for Ark. I would say it's because their user base is significantly larger. So if you're the developer, you're like, by doing this, even if it's only like 40-60% of the people are actually actively downloading it, we're talking about like 40 to 50% of 50 million people that are potentially engaging with it. So if you're the Ark developers, you're like, that's a big fan base that is going to be getting our game for free. That could potentially just be buying our game. That is, I think, a big part of it. And also, they technically get the game forever on Plus. Game Pass games go away at any time. Plus, it is in your account as long as you subscribe. And I think that has to be a cost that the developers have to look at.
And as long as you got it during those 31 days.
Yeah, as long as you have a tight window, and then it's yours forever in theory. No one come at me saying like, well, not forever, but you know what I mean. And
you could download Outriders on Game Pass April 2022, and they could remove it from Game Pass April 2023, and you're done.
Yeah, and but also right before it leaves Game Pass, though, there's the discount to buy it outright from them, and there's like at least a little bit of a hey, you could buy this game at any point right now. Where up until I want to say like last year, if you wanted to buy a game that you owned on Plus, it was damn near impossible because it gets kind of like weird and like
unavailable, not purchasable.
Yeah, so there's reasons why PlayStation has to pay just a little bit more for their deal.
And the funny part, the part that we're not really talking about either, is that the tiers now, like mostly tier 1 and tier 2, because tier 3 is all like the older stuff, right?
Yeah.
For PS Plus.
In theory, they haven't really released shit in the 3 months it's been there.
So tier 1 and tier 2, there's different subscriber counts. Which, if I'm a developer, then there's different dollars that we're talking about. If you want to put my stuff on tier 2, if I'm the developer, you're going to pay me more money because I know you're charging your consumer more money than if you want to put it on tier 1.
The contracts are probably way more complicated on PlayStation's end, because we're talking about different tiers. We're talking about, hey, here's the PlayStation Plus tier, the Essential tier, here's the extra tier.
Yeah, because with Game Pass, there's very few games that I feel like are available on console that aren't available on PC or vice versa. Typically, when you see it like that, it's because the game is only on PC. They didn't develop it for a console, or the game is only on console. It wasn't developed for a PC. So that's the part where you see where it's only available for Game Pass console or it's only available for Game Pass PC. If the game is available, and I mean, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure they will, but if the game is available on both PC and console, and it comes to Game Pass, I'm pretty sure it's on both, almost 99% of the time.
Yeah, it's not guaranteed, but it's close. There has been some weird instances where, like, they put the deal for PC, but they didn't put the deal on console, or vice versa. Mostly, it's like games that are on the console that are available on PC, but they're not available on Plus or Game Pass PC. Like that. That's the weirdness that happens there.
And we've seen Game Pass. I don't. And again, we'll never know the figures, but we've seen the success of Game Pass from allowing its player base. Like, and you can just point to the MLB The Show series. Like, if it wasn't successful for Major League Baseball as the publisher of MLB The Show on non-PlayStation platforms, then they wouldn't have gone back to Xbox for year 2.
Yeah, unless the deal was a multi-year deal from the beginning.
Right.
But
the first MLB The Show on Game Pass is still there.
Oh yeah, it is, isn't it?
So the first 21 is still there and 22 is there this year.
Okay. Yeah, so, I haven't checked in a while.
And I haven't.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I mean, to my knowledge, I don't think 21's off. I don't remember hearing that it was coming off. But at the same time, if both of them are on there, like, why are you playing 21 and when 22's there?
So now I'm loading up Game Pass just because I'm just like, I'm pretty sure they removed 21, but I could be wrong.
Maybe. I mean, I don't remember seeing it or hearing a big uproar about it or saying, hey, remember to upload your player, if that's even a thing anymore.
No, it's gone.
So, okay.
Yeah.
My mistake. So.
Yeah.
But it's super, super interesting to see, like, how much somebody pays for essentially what you're talking. And the other thing you're talking about is, like, over the 6 months, if a game's on Game Pass for the 6 months, you see high peaks, low valleys, peaks. For some reason there's conversation around it, or some streamer starts playing it, and then you see a huge peak on it during there. Again, if March of 2022, when April comes around, people start talking about Ark again on PlayStation, you can't go get it. Like, it's gone. If you didn't download it, it's gone. If you didn't have a Plus subscription, it wasn't available to you. Does that mean that the influx, like we've always talked about, the influx of people downloading it in March and playing it, and then all of a sudden their buddy gets online that hasn't been online for 6 weeks, or they bump into their friend at, wherever, at a party, graduation party. Oh, I've been playing a bunch of Ark. Oh, I didn't get it. Oh, yeah, I got it on Plus. But it's really fun. Oh, okay, I'll go home and check it out. Oh, it's $40. I'll just buy it. I want to play with you. Like, we've seen that happen.
Happens to me all the time, actually. Like, I forget to download my Plus games all the time.
And then your crew's playing it, and you're like, damn it, I missed it. All right, I'll just buy it.
Yep.
So, like, those are things, too, that those figures are there in terms of the post 31 days. So it's always cool to see a little bit behind the curtain, and I always want a little bit more. Like, I want to see, like, attach rates and stuff like that. Like, I want to see it. And it would just be fascinating. If I ever worked for a company that handles financials, I'd probably get in trouble because I would just like read stuff like crazy.
Yeah, you'd just be clicking in places you don't need to be. Well, this
like,
is
why are you in this folder 44 out of 22? Like,
that's not your department. It's something that we're probably going to start seeing more of as studios get acquired.
Right.
Because they're getting acquired by public companies usually, so then this information does have to come out eventually.
And we got a little bit of it during the Apple Epic thing too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like how much Epic was paying for, free games and stuff. So it's always super interesting, but I definitely feel in this case on both platforms, Xbox Gold and PS Plus Tier 1, the quality is going down.
No, PlayStation Plus, the first couple months, they've been treating the Essential tier very, very well. Like, I would say. Compared to what they were doing before PlayStation Plus. I would have to pull it up, but I feel like PlayStation Plus Essential, like, I was expecting it to be dire. Compared to what it was before, they had all the tiers. But Xbox games with Gold, like...
I guess my perspective is, like, every time I see the Plus announcement, I'm like, okay.
So I'm having the opposite of just like, I'm surprised it's as good as it's been because they have to take care of the extra and premium tiers. And I think the cost is going to the premium tier, especially now. It's not a news story, but people will use the PS2 games to crack and hack the PS5, which makes me think we're not going to be getting any PS2 games anytime soon if they're the vulnerability for the system. But like... Games with Gold is a joke. It's been a joke. Portal 2 is the last 360 game, so they've hit the limit of all their backwards compatible games. That
and the thing about it is like Games with Gold is a joke, but they have a better option. Like Game Pass is a far superior option than Games with Gold. Yeah.
While PlayStation's the tier system, so it almost doesn't matter, because it's like, oh, you're an Essential, and then you can just bump up to another tier. There's pros and cons with both services, but Games with Gold is clearly in last place of 100%. All of that.
I can't remember the last time. You know what? I've owned an Xbox for as long as I have. I played a ton of Game Pass games. In my definition of a ton, other people are like, you don't get your money for like, fine, that's your opinion. I don't know how to download a Game with Gold game.
It's really fucking annoying because the Xbox store is still...
I don't know how to do it, and I don't really care, and I don't really pay attention to it because, again, nothing that they've ever... Whether Wario tweets it or somebody talks about it, I'm more interested in the Game Pass.
Dude, I've legit given up. Like, I've gone to the store and be like, all right, where's the Games for Gold? And then I finally get to it.
I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, it's just in a store, but you've probably never been in the Xbox store.
Probably not, because I just go on the Game Pass icon.
Yeah, no. So... As someone who has gone to the Xbox store, it's a pain in the ass because that store sucks. That is like
I think I own. Store. I think I do. I don't think I know. I own Guardians of the Galaxy on my Xbox. Like I own it. I bought a digital code for it and entered it into my console. That is probably the only game that I own on my Xbox.
Yeah, and I own a handful. And
I'm okay with it.
Going to that
by the
store.
way, just before anybody, I'm totally okay with it.
Yeah. All right, let's do one more Game Pass story. So Brazil has approved. The deal. Has the U.S. approved it, or is it still under investigation? Because no one's talking about it.
I have no idea.
Yeah, but right now the big fight is in Europe, but we have been getting information because Xbox has had to, show some financial stuff to basically... Xbox is in a weird spot. They basically have to show, like, the UK that, like, we're humble Microsoft. We are in 5th place in revenue. We are so poor and broke. Which is a hilarious thing because they're fucking Microsoft, and that is not the case. But it came out that Game Pass on consoles has brought in $2.9 billion last year. So $2.9 billion. This accounts for 18% of all of Xbox's revenue. And overall, it doesn't include PC Game Pass, nor does it mention profitability. Because, as we know, it's hard to believe Xbox Game Pass is profitable, but it's probably a little bit of profits at this point. But it has generated $2.9 billion in revenue. Dave, do you think that, like, obviously that's like a good chunk of money? For Game Pass, not including PC.
The part that's more fascinating to me is the reverse math on this again, and I might be wrong. I always mess this up, but I mean that means that Xbox revenue is $16 billion?
Yes, that is correct.
A year.
Yeah.
Okay. And 20 or 18% of that only comes from Game Pass, which means 82% of it comes from not Game Pass.
Yeah, but you also PC Game Pass would be part of that as well, but that's probably not a huge chunk. It's probably 25%, maybe.
Right. Like at that, yeah, like another 5%, 2.5%, 3%.
Yeah, and then you get them over to 25, basically.
So over 75% of Xbox's revenue is from their hardware and software.
Surprisingly, and also a point that people overlook: their 30% cut of every game that gets sold on Xbox and all the microtransactions, that cut as well. Yeah,
that's the part that's like super super interesting to me, is that everybody's like, oh, they're, like, are they're putting all their eggs in the basket in Game Pass? Are they really? It's 2%, or it's 2 out of 10 things. Like,
yeah,
there's 8 other things. There's 8 other eggs that are producing more. Like,
yeah, this is another thing that I love, like the Twitter for, is because people are like, oh my god, they made $2.9 billion. It's like, no, this doesn't include profit.
Right.
Or this doesn't account for profit, which we imagine is low. But if you're Microsoft, you're probably not counting the Bethesda deal against this. Like, that's a separate acquisition that you pay for. Right. Like, that's a studio acquisition by Microsoft.
Microsoft bought them, not Xbox Gaming.
Yeah, so you can't take those numbers away from them. They're not going to put the $67 billion of Activision Blizzard against Game Pass revenue, because that's a separate
But I think
pillar.
Doesn't this kind of... This doesn't put to bed Game Pass bleeding money conversation, but I feel like this does put to bed, like, Xbox not being potentially profitable, because, like, if it is $16 billion in revenue a year, I find it hard to believe all of the studios that they own are spending more than $16 billion in development per year.
It all depends on how Microsoft sections off.
I know,
costs.
but we've heard, like, Xbox or Halo's development is like $600 million.
Yeah.
Okay. So $600 million of $16 billion.
And we're talking $600 million over a couple years. Not in 1 year they didn't spend $600 million. It's over
like, if you had to guess, again, if you had to guess, like, how much is Hellblade 2's development going to be? If you had to guess, it's going to probably be less than Halo, right?
Yeah, it's going to probably be in the 50 million range, 50 to 100.
Right.
Around there.
Again, over multiple years.
Yeah.
So, like, to think that, is it crazy to think that every studio maybe costs them $100 million a year to run?
Potentially.
Maybe 343 is a little bit more. You know, maybe if you go up to $200 million, and they have, what do we say now? They have like 25 studios.
Yeah, it's something crazy like that. And again, because they're owned by Microsoft, that stuff might not even be accounted in the Xbox division, because they're, like, Activision Blizzard's going to be its own tier.
The same argument can be made for Sony. Like,
definitely.
Is Last of Us Part 1's marketing part of Last of Us Part 1 development budget?
Potentially. Like, good chance, but we don't know for sure.
But could you see that Sony going, nope, that's an expenditure that Sony Incorporated takes, not Naughty Dog?
Yeah, I'm sure it happens definitely with, like, the movies, TV shows aspect of it as well.
Right.
And merchandise stuff probably gets funneled differently. But it's definitely, this shows you that Xbox is healthy, despite all the acquisitions. And we talk about, like, man, they can't put out a fucking game to save their life, but they still made...
Well, at this point in time,
money.
like, yes, is releasing games and releasing Redfall and Starfield and Hellblade and all these games that they're talking about, are releasing these games important? Yeah, 100%. They are important. Are they making or breaking what's going to happen in the future of Microsoft currently? No.
No, yeah. But if we're just talking about...
Or, I'm sorry, not of Microsoft, of Xbox.
Okay, that's what I was going to correct,
Is the releasing of Starfield, is the success of Starfield going to decide whether Xbox sinks or floats? And the answer is no.
Yeah, and exactly. Is
the release of any Microsoft studio game going to bend or break Xbox gaming? The answer is no.
The only thing that could break them is if Microsoft looks at it being a gigantic $1 trillion company and go...
And sends it the route of Stadia.
Yeah, and go, only $16 billion? Like, that's the only thing that they have to fear, and honestly, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. 16 billion is a good number, especially if you look at where Xbox was 3 years ago, before the Series S and X. It seems like it's a solid number, and it's a good direction for Game Pass in terms of like, hey, they're making this much money off third-party deals, and there's a chance that they won't have to rely on third-party deals as much in a couple years if their studios ever get their shit together.
There's still the age-old proverb, the 80-20 rule. 80% of your work is for 20% of your stuff. Like, or 20% of your effort is for 80% of your, your end all. Like, is Game Pass the 80-20 thing? Like, in terms of like continuous, if you know that 20% of your revenue is going to be consistently that much. And that's what a concurrent Game Pass subscriber gets you, is a consistent flow of revenue.
Yeah, almost $3 billion.
Will it go higher? It'll go higher. Will it go lower? It'll go lower. But when they're not releasing a console and there's enough of the series in the market now, and the people aren't maybe buying them at a high rate that they are buying them now, will that revenue go down? The revenue will go down. Maybe it goes down to like 12, 13, 11 million. But I bet you that, or 11 billion, I'm sorry, but I bet you that 3 billion from Game Pass either stays the same or goes higher because you get more subscribers.
Yeah, it should work that way in the long run. But yeah, I would love to know though, because we know like we're always gonna compare Xbox and PlayStation together.
Yeah, it's inevitable.
The PlayStation Plus is significantly larger than Game Pass. Significantly larger than Game Pass at this point. Subscriber count.
But also a third cheaper.
Yeah, yeah. But like the fact that, 2.9 billion has been made from Game Pass, knowing their numbers and then knowing what PlayStation Plus's numbers are, especially when we're talking about like Game Pass does still have a ton.
Are we talking about 2.9 million revenue lifetime?
No, this is in a year, I believe.
Right. Okay.
Last year alone, 2.9 billion. So, when we look at Plus, knowing that like how much money they're probably making from theirs, which I'm sure we can dig around and find that information.
Yeah, I mean, if you got 50 million, if you got 50 million people paying $50 or $60,
Yeah, and then Game Pass also has so many different offers and tiers for new subscribers. So all the times that they're I think they're still doing
50
the dollar.
50 times 60 is 3,000. So that's $3 billion, right?
Yeah, potentially.
3 billion. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's almost the same.
Yeah, if not a little bit more, in some instances, because we're rounding. But yeah, no, it's definitely showing how healthy the subscription service is and why like this is where we're at in the industry, where Xbox is looking at their acquisitions of like, we made almost $3 billion, and we're making a shit ton of deals to get
another
this shit
question
here.
that kind of ties to this that I thought about after our conversation last week about and we didn't go into super detail about it, but Herman Hulse publicly talking about like their games as a service style games coming to console and PC on day one. Do you think that do you think that all of the PlayStation games as a services games are going to be free to play?
I think a good chunk of them are going to be, if they're going to take this serious. I would probably say 2 out of 3.
Is Factions going to be free to play? Because that's the marquee one, right? That's going to be the marquee games as a service is Factions.
I feel like Sony's hubris enough not to.
Let's just say it's $50.
Yeah.
And then you have to buy some other stuff with it, or $40 and you have to buy some other stuff with it, season passes or whatever. So then it also, I think you and I are in agreement on this, that Factions will come to PC day one as also, right?
I think that's what's taking so long, yeah.
Okay. So if it costs $40 or $50 for Factions to be to the day it comes out and it comes to PC at the same time, will PS Plus be required to play Factions?
No, I think they will
on PS5.
So if it was free to play, it wouldn't.
Correct. I agree. 100%.
Yeah, because that's just their terms of service, basically. Yep. So maybe Factions will be free to play at that point. Because basically I was like looking at the games that they might have coming, like the Twisted Metal game. will probably free to play, because Twisted Metal will not survive.
The new Havens game, free to play.
Yeah, especially because they're talking about it being a platform.
Creativity Studio game.
Yeah.
The Sometimes Always Monster game, I feel like has got free to play written all over it.
Factions is the only one.
In terms of competitive shooter. Right. That's why I used it as an example, because I think, like, you and I, like right now, like we have Plus, okay? Mm-hmm. But again, if we're recommending the games to our friends, hey, and they don't, like, hey, do you have a PC? Yeah. Okay, your PC can run it, and you don't have to pay to be online.
Yeah, that would be a thing, because that's the thing with Factions. Factions is, because it's Naughty Dog, you would look at it as a prestige experience, which means some sort of monetary value on top of that. But it can go either way.
I'm terrified that they're going to try to, like, I was talking to Johnny as a boy about this week. I'm terrified they're going to try to charge $50 to $70 for this thing and have microtransactions and season passes in it. I'm terrified that they're going to be like, they're going to pound their chest like, we're Naughty Dog, we can do both.
Yeah, and they can probably get away with it because their quality is so high and their prestige. I
agree, but that's gonna be like a hard pill to swallow. Like, you spend $70 and you get 3 or 4 months of content, and then they're like, "Hey, here's new stuff, and it costs this much."
So, I think that would almost guarantee it won't make it on PC. In terms of, it will be on PC, but it won't have a community on PC if it's not free to play. As opposed to on console, we're kind of just conditioned to it. Like, I'm putting $40 or $60 down on this multiplayer game, and playing Plus on top of it, and buying a Game Pass.
Didn't want to derail that. Sorry, but that was an interesting part that I wanted to have. So continue with your agenda, sir.
Okay. Next news story. We don't usually talk about new releases, but this one's kind of cracked me up. Need for Speed Unbound is coming in December. So EA revealed that Need for Speed Unbound is coming December 2nd to PC, PS5, Xbox Series S and X. Pre-orders can play a couple days early on November 29th. The game takes place in Lakeshore City, and so it's their version of Chicago, I guess. And we'll have a single-player campaign with like a focus on customization, and it's got like anime-style art, so it looks pretty trippy if you look at the trailer. They're definitely going for a style. But Dave, you have like a 90-day rule for when you can announce a game and release it.
Yeah.
Do you think it's coming out?
Pretty close.
On December 2nd?
Yes, I do. I think that they really, really waited. I believe this is Criterion, right?
I would have to... let me look that up again, because I believe you're right.
I think I heard this is Criterion.
Yeah.
So, like, this might be something that they were like, hey, can you do it? Can you do it? Can you do it? And they're like, yep. It's like... Because they haven't had Criterion for very long.
No, they have. But they haven't had Codemasters for very long.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. So... but this is less than 60 days. I think that if it's less than 60 days, like, it's coming. I have a 90-day rule in terms of like your release date, but I'm going to be a little hypocritical here, and like, you can't give me a 90-day rule if you announce a game and release date it within 60 days. Like, they announce it and date it. Like, I'm okay with that. I love the fact that we didn't hear about this 12, 18 months ago.
Do you think this is them just kind of getting the game out the door? Because Decembers are cursed for game releases. Yeah, they're missing Thanksgiving, Black Friday.
If this is going to be a games as a service, yeah. Like, they're trying to get it out. They're trying to get people to mess with it. If they're going to have like post-campaign stuff in here, and like, yes. If not, I think this is more or less of, if it's Criterion, has Criterion released anything since been purchased by EA?
Yeah, they did the Star Wars. Well, they worked on Battlefront a little bit here and there,
but they haven't done the start to finish game, right?
No, they've done like some of the other Need for Speed games. They've been acquired by EA since like Burnout Paradise. Several years. Yeah. I think you're getting confused with Codemasters and all the other racing companies.
Yeah, okay. Right.
But it's been a while, it feels like, since they've had their own game, because they've been kind of a utility studio for... I think they did one of the Star Wars games.
I think that what this might be is this might be a game that, like you always talk about, that's been worked on by 30% of the staff in the background, and then all of a sudden somebody's in the office and he goes, "What the hell is that?" Like they see it, and they're like, "Oh, well, that's just like." Somebody going, "Oh, I might, like I've been working at, we've been working on this as kind of like a troubleshooting thing for this, and it kind of evolved into this." And some executive going, "How close is that to being able to come out? Like, is this price? Is this a $70 game?"
Yeah, this is a full price game.
Okay.
Which
so I think that
makes me maybe doubt it.
Maybe 12 or 15 months ago, somebody goes, "What's Jimmy's team working on over there?"
It's either that or yo, you've been working on this too long.
Right.
Get this out as soon as possible. Because the trailer, it looks okay. I do like the stylized art, but the
stuff that's come out in the last 48 hours, though, some people are saying a little bit better. Like the announcement thing kind of fell a little flat, but now there's been a couple more things that have come out that people are like, okay, that's not as bad as I thought it was. People are saying it gives them a small GTA vibe.
I can kind of see the thing that I noticed, obviously their art is a huge thing, the almost anime art style that's kind of overlapped on it. It definitely gives it a unique look, but it also gives it a look of you're covering stuff up by smearing the anime art on it and then having the stylized stuff coming off the cars.
You can't see the details on the car because of all the lights.
Kinda, yeah. It feels like one of those things where this either could be a sleeper hit or this could just come out and you're like, oh, that's why they released it in December.
Yeah.
Because Game of the Year discussions will be done at major outlets.
Right. Whether we like it or don't like it. We've talked about name brand recognition, and Need for Speed carries weight.
And it would carry more weight if it came out during Black Friday.
I agree, but it could also just be one of those things where
fuck it, it's
this could
2
be
weeks
the week before Christmas. It's $40 on sale, or post Christmas. I got a gift card. I need to buy something. Oh, there's a new Need for Speed game. Cool.
But it also can find itself in that thing where within a week or two, it's on sale, $20-$30 off, and then people in our position would look at it oh, that must be really fucking bad. That came out a week ago and it's already down. So it's in a really tough spot where different audiences that might be intrigued by it are going to be put off, and then other people are. A lot of people I know get their shopping done during Black Friday week, and then they don't buy shit the rest of December. So this could be a sleeper hit, or it could just be EA just being we're just going to get rid of it, and then when it comes time to getting rid of Criterion or the Need for Speed brand, we're going to point back to this game we never gave a chance to, and be look how bad that did.
I mean, this is the company that let 2042 out the door.
Yeah. They 1313 Battle. Yeah. Battlefield.
No, I'm talking about that.
Release.
Let them turn the switch on for Battlefield 2042.
And that's where my hesitation is. I was ready to be against this game because I don't want to see Chicago bastardized again like Watch Dogs.
Right. People don't. The thing that a lot of I didn't really pay very much attention to this. Other than just reading some stuff about it, but people are really against the out of the car stuff. This is just kind of the evolution of these games. You can't just build I don't think you can build a non-simulation racing game that only involves you being in the car anymore. I just don't think that you can do that.
Well, I mean, you're not walking around a lot or anything. I don't think you're walking around at all, but you are seeing full-bodied characters and stuff. So I could see people being I just want to race the car, and it's just no, this game needs cutscenes. Right. This needs something to stand out. It needs that anime flair. But I worry about Criterion or just Need for Speed as a brand in total. Just because if this goes bad, they're just going to be all right, we're handing over everything to Codemasters. And as great as Codemasters is, they mostly just make simulation games, and that could be the future of EA's racing games. Of just we're just doing simulation games now. Nothing with flavor on it. But that's it for the news.
All right. And in what's delayed, Need for Speed has been... No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. That'll be next week.
Yeah. That would be really dumb. At that point, that would be total EA.
Yeah, I mean, PlayStation did that with The Last of Us Part 2, where they did a state of play, and then a week later, they're we're delaying it. I mean, you just announced the release date. But EA totally would be we listened to your feedback off that initial trailer, and we're delaying this. So... Yeah.
All right, so what we're playing and watching. So I haven't really played a lot of stuff. I've dabbled with some Destiny. I am playing something that's under embargo, and that I can't talk about till next week. So that's taking up a little bit of my time. Not much. I got it today, so not a ton, but that will be taking up more of my time next week. Watching. I watched the first episode of the new Mighty Ducks Game Changer thing. It's fine. It's I have to see what the rest of it's like. I watched some other crap on Netflix that I ended up binging an entire 10 episode show. It was 10 episodes at 25 minutes apiece. Just Netflix shovelware. And then I don't think you and I have had at all like a conversation back and forth, but like, are you enjoying She-Hulk?
I was enjoying She-Hulk, but I kind of fell off the last like 3 weeks. But it's something I do plan to go to when I have some time.
Yeah, because they're starting to do some crossovers. It's not really a spoiler, but like Daredevil shows up.
Yeah, which they I think spoiled in the first trailer for the show.
Yeah, which my wife Angela got intrigued and like started looking like, oh, like maybe we go back and watch, because they did a really good job with the character development in the show for him. Like if you weren't accustomed to him, she's like, I kind of want to watch the Netflix show now. The show that was,
and it's on Disney Plus now. So
it's on Disney Plus now. So it was on Netflix and now it's on Disney Plus, because she's like, I'm kind of interested, because at first she's like, who is that? I'm like, because she's like, she wasn't always putting it together of like he was in No Way Home. Mm-hmm. Or like in Spider-Man, and then she knows who Daredevil is. Like she's not naive, but she didn't know like that was Daredevil.
Yeah,
like that actor. I like the fourth wall dynamic where she like talks to you.
Yeah, a lot of people were against that, but I like it because it's not like the smarmy Deadpool fourth wall breaking stuff.
So I'm super super fascinated by it. But again, I like Miss Marvel. Like I kind of like what they're trying to do and what they're trying to go with in terms of the directions that they're trying to take. And I'm just hoping that we start seeing, like we talked about before, I just like, I maybe like WandaVision season 2 is not a thing, but like Captain America and the Winter Soldier season 2 should be a thing. More She-Hulk should be a thing. Like I don't think that they can sustain these shows being 8, 9, 10 episode series and then that's it. Mm-hmm. Like, I think there needs to be like maybe more, or at least maybe have these characters start showing up in the other shows. Like I didn't finish Hawkeye, but like I'm like, oh, it's there, and there's not another one coming up to force me to watch it. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's all these 6 to 9 episode one and done things, and we're getting to the point where it's like, okay, where's the second one?
Yeah,
like
I'm fine.
I'm liking, as corny as it is, I'm liking that like Big Shot, the John Stamos show. At least it's getting a season 2. Mighty Ducks is getting a season 2.
Yeah, but I also think like I'm fine with the seasons being kind of short and there not being another season, because to me the MCU is expanding too much to where the more they drag these characters out and they don't interact with other characters, that's like what's going on here. But also I think you're more accustomed to shows that have like 20 episode seasons.
The length of the seasons like doesn't really bother me. Like I think that they've done a pretty good job of like tying everything together. But like Mandalorian had multiple seasons. Like and the thing about it now is like we haven't seen Winter Soldier show up in another Marvel movie yet. We haven't seen the new Captain America show up in another Marvel
Winter
movie
Soldier yet. Captain America 4 was announced, and
right.
But
we're talking years after the season,
and that's the problem. It's too big.
Like, when do you expect to see Kamala Khan in the MCU movies?
Next year, her movie's coming out.
The one, and it's going to be the same actress that was in the show.
Yes, the next. Okay. So Captain Marvel 2 is now The Marvels, and it's going to be her. What's her last name? Rambo. The girl from WandaVision. And Captain Marvel.
Right.
But to your point, because I think because they're expanding so much, you do get these long gaps because they have so many characters
to
fill
in. Where the hell is White Vision?
Oh yeah. What happened to him? Like he's somewhere around there.
Yeah. And like now we're talking 2020 when he showed up, right? Like during the pandemic, he showed up, and now it's 2022, 2023.
He just was like,
where is he?
I'm flying off to my home planet, and this flew away, and we'll see him whenever.
Right.
We're getting to a point to where like, I'm really worried we're not going to see Moon Knight anytime soon, and I think I'm right.
Right.
And Moon Knight was interesting and had a cliffhanger ending.
Yeah.
And they just pushed back a bunch of movies. Are you expecting a season 2? Or
are you expecting him in a movie?
Yeah. And if he's in a movie, it's almost like, no, he was such a good standalone character. But you're just like,
to be fair, they've done the same thing with the Eternals. They released a movie, they dropped 9 heroes on you. I don't even know what the number is, 9 or 10 heroes on you, and now nothing.
Well,
and I know there's more.
Well, no
little drips either anywhere. No little drips or no little teases or no little hints.
Eternals failed so bad though that like even actors are like, I don't know if we're ever going to be back.
But how do you write? Like, you just write it out? Oh, Thanos showed up again and snapped the Eternals and they're gone?
No.
Like, how do you write it out?
You just don't bring them up like they do in, when Iron Man...
Like the first Hulk movie.
Or like in, Iron Man 3 when he's like saving the president and you're like, who would be really good to save the president? Captain fucking America, to where it's like, why isn't he helping? So like,
it's the
that's
same,
always
it's the
been
same
a problem.
Conversation though, like similar conversation that we had with like Thor: Love and Thunder. Like as standalone by itself, its own tree, Love and Thunder's really good, really good. Mm-hmm. But in terms of a continuation or a prequel or anything to move the Marvel Cinematic Universe needle, it didn't do it.
Yeah, it felt very standalone, and we're conditioned for the MCU to be like, this is connected to something, and in reality it's like, well, it's connected to Guardians kind of, and then now
and I'm starting to get a little bit better, a little bit more accepting of it, but at the same time it's like, like that's why I guess at the same time I'm like Angela's like, hey, do you want to start Andor? I'm like, maybe let's just wait till more's out, and I'm hearing great things about Andor, but I'm not in a huge hurry to watch it because what am I going to do? Watch Rogue One after it?
Well, when it comes to talking about Daredevil, it's like Daredevil, I haven't seen it, but everyone really likes his cameo or his episode.
Yeah.
And it's just like, cool, when are we getting another Daredevil thing? It's like, 2 years.
Right.
It's like, is he going to pop up anywhere else? No.
And then my concern, too, is the expectations of, like, both ways, taking these characters, and again, I don't know her name. I'm sorry. The actress that's playing She-Hulk. Mm-hmm. Plays Jennifer Gardner in the show. I think that's is she going to continue to be She-Hulk like over the next 8 years?
Well, that's how they sign the contracts. But does it mean TV show? Does it mean movie? We don't know because that's not public.
And then, we always the concern about it in Miss Marvel was Captain Marvel showed up and it was her. It was it was the Captain Marvel that we know, and that was good. They didn't obviously they didn't try to do anything, but are we going to see different interactions and so this movie star doesn't have time to do a television show.
Yeah.
Because we've heard we've had this dynamic with voice actors in video games.
Yeah. But they sign their contract structurally towards like, here's how many things we're going to do with you, stay in shape. It's one of the things that I think Chris Evans complained about. He had to stay in ridiculous shape way more than he wanted to because he knew his contract. It's just those contracts just aren't public.
We've heard Scarlett Johansson's pissed at Disney because of releasing Black Widow on Plus.
Yeah, and they paid her out and now she's happy and she's willing to come back for the shitty Avengers movie that they're doing, the knockoff Avengers, Avengers at Home.
They're in this weird dynamic of trying to balance the television shows and the movies and trying to make them fit together, but at the same time respecting the fact that some people may never see the movies and watch the shows, or some people may only see the movies and not watch the shows. And I hate that.
Yeah. It's kind of problematic.
All right, so now that's it for watching, playing, and complaining.
Okay, for me, so my list is kind of all over the place. I was in a cabin for about 4 days, so I didn't get to play too much, though Dave saw my list and was like, you played a lot of games, but in reality it was a couple sessions here and there. So just to get the quick ones out of the way, Mario Party, ended up playing Drunken Mario Party one night at the cabin on the Switch. Luckily the cabin had a TV, so I brought a spare Switch dock, hooked it up, played a 30-turn game. I think that ended up taking 2-3 hours. Played Smash Brothers in the car. Surprisingly, we were playing Smash Brothers in the car on the Switch in the backseat, which just made me and my friend just play act like we're just a bunch of kids. They have the old DVD player that to you two shut up. Here's the Switch. So we ended up playing Smash Brothers.
I totally don't do that as a dad when we travel to Kentucky for 6 hours and duct tape the Switch to my son's forehead. I don't do that.
Oh yeah. There's no reason to do that.
That's bad parenting.
Yeah. And then also on a car ride, I played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 on a Switch. That works surprisingly well. It's 30 frames per second, and it looks a little muddier compared to the PS5, PS4 version of the game. But for the most part, as a Switch handheld game, pretty good. And then I also played the puzzle game Mixolumia as well. At the cabin, did finally start playing Capcom Fighting Collection, which released a couple months ago. I actually have 2 copies, one sealed and one not sealed because I'm stupid. But this has
Okay, Josh.
Josh just has he only buys games to look on a spreadsheet. I have so basically this had Darkstalkers, Vampire Hunters 2, Vampire Savior 2, but what we were mostly playing was Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, and like Super Gem Fighter Mini. So those are like the puzzle games that are also like, fighting puzzle games, if you've ever seen those. And then Cyberbot's Full Metal Madness, which was like the only game on there that I had no fucking clue what that game was until I played it. And it's just like, what if Street Fighter characters were mechs? And it's, 1990 art style. So very, very cool sprites. All the dialogue in it was Japanese, for in between rounds. But super enjoy it. I really love these Capcom collections that they put out, like the Street Fighter 30th anniversary they put out two years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And then this is just great in terms of like, hey, here's like gigantic soundtrack list. Here's like some concept art in the thing. Here's like pretty good emulation of these arcade games / like old console games on there. So really enjoy this. And again, it's got Darkstalkers on it. So just to support that franchise, I ended up picking up a copy and then held on a copy because it could be something that they just really don't keep in print very too long. Like this probably might just have like a 1 or 2 year run and then they're just going to stop making it. So started to play that. Probably will mess around with it a little bit more. But it was perfect for like, hey, we're at a cabin. There's multiple people. Let's just play this game. But the big one, which, oh my God, did I have a fucking struggle with for several hours this morning.
Q Simulator 2022?
Yes, Overwatch 2. So Overwatch 2 dropped, was it last Friday? I think. And I was at a cabin. My internet connection sucked. So I was just like looking on Twitter when Twitter would decide to load for me. And people complain like, oh my God, the queue's like 30,000 people, 40,000 people, 100,000 people. And I was just kind of laughing of like, haha, you don't know when Final Fantasy XIV releases an expansion, how bad those queues can get. So I was like, you know what? People are having issues with the servers crashing, the queues being long, and the data account merger stuff not working. So I was like, you know what? They'll probably be fixed by Tuesday when I got home. Turns out the queue stuff is fine. Like, you get in right away. But if you want to do your account merger, holy shit, that is like a terrible process. So for those that don't know, in Overwatch 1, you'd unlock characters, your rank, items, like just like cosmetic stuff for your profile. But the most important thing are the cosmetics. This game ran for 3-4 years, Overwatch 1, and you either paid money or spent a lot of time to unlock several costumes. For like one character, I think my most complete character is Moira. I have 109 out of 111 cosmetic items unlocked for Moira in Overwatch 1.
Skins, emotes.
Yes, yeah, sprays, all that stuff. So I wanted my shit. So luckily they're like, hey, if you had merged your Activision account or your Blizzard account, Battle.net, whatever the fuck it's called now, if you merged your Battle.net account with your PlayStation Network account, just hit this option in the menu, merge accounts, and they'll transfer your account over to Overwatch 2. Cool. Fine. You click it. It's like, you're in a queue. The queue for me said this morning, 300,000 in queue. Luckily, it was moving like 10,000 every like 10 seconds. So ideally, it wasn't bad. Get to the bottom of the queue, and then it's like, cool, turn off your game and turn it on again. This will take about a minute, and then your stuff will be merged. Clicked it, got into the game, and it's like, cool, you're 50,000th in queue. So then I fucking wait for it to go back down to 0, get the prompt, turn off your system, and then your account will be merged. I did this for like an hour of going back and forth until it finally clicked, and then I got all my costumes. I don't understand.
Which means you were waiting for a server door to open to connect finally.
And then I would get knocked for whatever reason when it wouldn't like line up properly. I don't understand why they went this method. But then I also came to the realization that my Overwatch 1 save and my Overwatch 1 game, now to say Overwatch 2, they basically nuked Overwatch 1 completely. Like the servers are completely shut down for Overwatch 1, and then like just my PlayStation metadata changed in terms of like when I went to go down, which
is really scary.
Yeah, and I was like before I started playing, I was like, you know what? I'm going to grab my save data from Overwatch 1 and pull it down from the cloud and put it on my PS5 because I didn't know sometimes games will read the old save file.
Yeah, sure.
I only can find a save file that said Overwatch 2 from 2 years ago, the last time I played it. And I was just like, did they nuke all the data from that? And then, I then went into my games profile and went through all of my games, and I couldn't find Overwatch 1. And I was like, what the fuck? Mm-hmm. Like, my profile that shows how much time I spent on a game in the PS5.
Right.
And Overwatch 1 was completely gone from that list. And then I look at Overwatch 2's...
That's scary.
Yeah.
Like,
and then I look at Overwatch 2...
In terms of, like, historical or a little collection of, like, this is my game of the generation, which is what Overwatch was for you on PS4.
Yeah, it was damn near close. And then just because also it had my
game of generation is bad. I'm sorry, but this is my go-to.
Yeah, this was my multiplayer game on PS4. Yeah. And then I was just like, cool. My profile merged, but it said I only played 500 hours. Maybe in 1 year. I played 500 hours because I'm in
1 month.
Yeah, because I'm in Overwatch 2 and it shows all your stats from the previous game. And I'm like, what the fuck? I played more than 500 hours. I would get those.
I want my correct kills on my character. I want what I earned. I want what I did. I want my data to show. And
so then I'm like, okay, let me go to the PS5 section in the profile that shows like your games and time played. And again, I couldn't find Overwatch 1 listed there at all. And I was like, this is fucking shit. And then there's also weird things where in Overwatch 2, if you look at the trophy data, there's like 5 sections for trophies. It's like Overwatch 2, Overwatch 2 1, Overwatch 2 3, Overwatch 2 4, and I'm just like, who designed this trophy system? Why are there 88 trophies?
I've also heard on Xbox, like when you earn an achievement on Xbox, it crashed your game.
It's really rough in like server stability and just like weird bugs. Yeah. But that's just getting set up, which wasn't a good sign. But all my cosmetics transferred. There are people that none of their cosmetics transferred, and they're basically told like, don't worry, we have that data, we'll fix it for you later. But
where? Because now you don't have anything that says Overwatch 1.
And also the save file wouldn't have had that data to begin with, so it's all on their server side. So at any point,
I mean, that's like the only thing I can relate to is like that's a thing that I'm worried about eventually with Destiny 1. Is that they're going to turn off Destiny 1 servers. Like, it's going to happen. Like, I can still go into Destiny 1 right now. I can play. They're not updating the sandbox. They're not doing balances. They're not doing anything like that. But the weapons that I earned...
If you wanted to go back to a time machine, you could. Yeah. Overwatch 5 is 5v5. Overwatch 1, or Overwatch 2 was 5v5. Overwatch 1 was 6v6. If I want that 6v6 playstyle, I can't go back to it now. It's gone forever.
Right.
But... in terms of like how it plays, which is obviously the most important thing, though for me the cosmetics were the most important thing because I put like I think roughly like 2,000 hours into Overwatch 1.
Dude, I remember like even at E3, you're like, I just got to do my daily really quick. It'll be like 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, because like Andy would bring his PlayStation, and I'll be like, fuck it, let me get some loot boxes and shit.
You're like, I'm just gonna, and you're like, I'm like, what do you do? He's like, oh, dude, just give me like 12 minutes, we'll be done.
Yeah,
I promise.
Yeah.
And that's what it would be. He'd sign on for 12 minutes and bounce off.
Because I think you did the same thing. Like when like Andy would bring his PS4, we were just like, all right, you get some Destiny time, I get some some Overwatch time, and then we'll be good. But so that out of the way, I have my cosmetics. I'm happy. It actually remembered my cosmetics I had set up for my characters from Overwatch 1, which I thought was a nice touch. I didn't have to like go into each individual character and change their costumes and emotes around. So good on him for at least getting that part right. But in terms of gameplay, I do think the 5v5, and this is not just my opinion, I think this is like the whole Overwatch community's opinion, it is a dramatic difference going to 5v5 from 6v6 because now you have 2 DPS, 2 support, 1 tank. Losing the tank has dramatically changed the way this game is pacing-wise. This game pretty much no longer has the defensive choke points that it had before. It is very much like go, go, go offensive now because you only have 1 tank to support you, and if that tank goes rogue or fucks off a little bit or dies, it's almost like you're screwed. You almost want to have your 2 support just on your tank at all times. But a lot of the maps that we're playing in Overwatch 2 are the maps from Overwatch 1, but the time of day has changed. So for the most part, like I'm fine with that. It's a little like, why is this Overwatch 2? especially the PvE doesn't exist until TBD. So it definitely was like a smack in the face of just like going to King's Row and being like, cool, I know how to hold down this choke point. And then 2 seconds into it being like, where the fuck are my tanks? Oh shit, we had 1 tank and he died. Like this being like the utter devastation of like being on these old maps. And I wasn't the only one struggling with it, because like I can tell everyone was struggling with that. All the OG Overwatch players who have strats for these maps.
Let me go to the sniping lane. Let me go to the tuck corner.
Yeah,
you know, like
and being like, oh, I can't do that because we're missing a tank. You know, like you can tell like some of the healers were a little bit lost. I play a healer DPS. I'm a Moira main. I'm sorry. So I wasn't as affected as much, but there were some times where I'm just like, why the fuck did they break through that hole so fast? Oh yeah, we only have 1 tank and they're in the 1 position they would usually be in Overwatch 1. So there is definitely a pace change that I'm going to have to get used to on this. I played a handful of matches this morning. I'm going to play afterwards. Haven't been on a new map, like at all. It's only been...
Is there new maps?
Yeah, there's a few new maps, but it's been, for the most part, I've just been getting the Overwatch 1 maps. But there's some things that are a little... I like some changes that they made in terms of like, hey, we have role queue and open queue now. As opposed to in Overwatch 1, it was open queue and then it turned into role queue. Now it's just like, here's both. The competitive stuff is a little... It's a little confusing. So before you would have to do like preliminary matches for the competitive season to know where you're ranked. I don't think you're doing that anymore, because I'm still waiting. Like, I guess after 7 games, they'll give you some sort of rank, but they don't really surface that information to you good enough.
I hope they don't release the competitive ranking until they get their servers under control, because I've heard of people getting kicked out of games, and I would hate that for that to be my competitive ranking meeting.
Especially like
preliminaries.
It was brutal when you got kicked in the first game, so I'm sure it's just as brutal. But there's definitely some issues of just like they're not servicing the information as well as they could in terms of like. I miss after a game it being like, here are your 10 preliminary matches, and here's a list of your wins and losses. Right now I'm doing a comp game. I win or lose, and then it's just like, all right, I guess I'll just load into another comp game. I don't have an idea just yet on where I'm at.
Have they done like a roadmap of like, is this like a preliminary season? Is this
season so this
1?
Season is 55 days. So this is the first season.
Okay.
So seasons will be 60 days. There is a battle pass. I forget how long the battle pass lasts. I did buy it just because I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna just go in just so I can find out. And it's a $10 pass.
It's Overwatch. It's a game you enjoy playing, so you don't have a problem dropping $10 or whatever.
Yeah. So for the items in the season pass, there's nothing too crazy with it.
Is this a time for me to jump into this game?
I don't know. So did you play Overwatch 1 on your profile at any point?
Nope.
Okay, so you're not going to have all the characters unlocked. I have all the characters unlocked.
I read some article you have to play 100 matches, which is like 15 matches a character or something.
Yeah, so like it's going to suck for new players, I think, especially you're not starting on an even ground with everyone else, because everyone else has characters from the previous game.
Do you think that's going to affect the player count?
Yes and no. The Overwatch player count is really high from the first game. So it won't be noticeable, but I don't know if we're going to see growth in it. I think we're going to see like this, whatever it was before.
If you don't see growth, and it's not accessible, what you're saying is you don't think you're going to see growth, and you also don't see good accessibility for new players, correct?
At least right now, the way they have it set up.
So why does this game exist? Like, why does the second version exist then?
Because they wanted to turn it into a platform and have a sequel at the same time. And if you remember, Overwatch 1 was fucking huge. That was a huge phenomenon, and that player base dwindled. Not fast. It took a couple years for it to dwindle, but it dwindled. So right now I think Overwatch 2 is just to see if they can get back to where they were. Yeah. And once they're there, if they can grow from there.
Yeah. My understanding of the player base is that the player base continued to decline. It never plateaued.
Yeah. It never hit rock bottom.
Again, comparing Overwatch to Destiny, like Destiny's player base has declined, but it also has long plateaus, and it has large spikes, and then it plateaus again.
Yes.
It doesn't fall below a certain point. Overwatch fell below a certain point.
And it's been steady to where they can still support a pro league, and a pro league puts in okay numbers. But basically they're trying to bring that
Jolt
back.
It again.
Yeah. And I think that's what their goal is, because it doesn't really seem too friendly for new players outside of being free to play. But it's also hard to judge that because I'm bringing in my Overwatch 1 history, which unlocks all the characters for me. So, like, I would be curious to see your interaction with it because you have nothing to start with.
I am gonna download it. I just haven't decided what platform I'm gonna download it on.
Just make sure you link up all your cross progression. So just link everything into your Blizzard account.
I'll probably download all 3 of them at a certain point in time because I'm getting a new PC. I want to mess with it on the PC. Until PlayStation and Discord get their act together, I'll probably jump from platform to platform depending on if my friends are playing or what they're playing or who I end up grouping up with. And I think it'd just be easier for me to, like, if I'm gonna play it on my Xbox, I'd probably just play it on my PC and jump on Discord with somebody unless I want to sit on my couch.
Yeah,
that's kind of like the choice I'm having right now. So it's something I might, I've got some space on the hard drive of everything right now. So and then I also want to stream and mess with my new PC when I get it next week. So and see what what stuff looks like and how much easier it is to do things.
I will say though, it is good to have Overwatch back. I did within like a match or two being like, I think I looked over at Sarah and being like, I fucking miss this game.
It feels homeish.
Yeah.
It feels comfortable t-shirt. Like your Overwatch to you is Destiny to me.
Yeah.
And it's just it's comfortable. It's a positive and a negative when you say this, but it's a game that you can kind of play and just turn your mind off.
Yeah.
And just play.
I will say it is interesting though that so one of the characters from Overwatch 1 did not come to Overwatch 2. Apparently they're completely reworking that character. Bastion isn't playable. He doesn't even have an icon in Overwatch 2. And that's been like a thing fans have been asking this whole weekend, like, where the fuck is Bastion? So the idea they're reworking that character completely is interesting to me. And also they disabled a character from play this week. Because I guess it wasn't ready for launch, or they thought was ready but wasn't.
Destiny does the same thing, and I feel like it's a Band-Aid.
Yeah, no,
like,
but
that's not working correctly, so we're going to just say that nobody can touch it.
Well, no, which my point was going to be, I think that's fantastic because that was a constant problem in Overwatch 1 where they would patch the game and something would be broken, there would be an exploit, and then we would have to live with that exploit until the next patch, which Activision Blizzard was pretty fast at patching, but you might have like a week where you're like,
of pure chaos of somebody just running at you with a full auto shotgun or something.
Yeah, we're like, Reaper's completely busted this week, and then if you saw Reaper in your competitive game, you're like, God damn it, and you knew like you were screwed.
I feel like they start using the like Destiny turns off a weapon, or they turn off a piece of armor, or they turn off a mod. Oop, that's not working like we intended to. We've temporarily disabled it, and I feel like that they consistently do that more and more and more.
It's a total Band-Aid, but it's something like in a competitive scene is very helpful when you don't want your time ruined.
You're not going to mess up my score because I ran against somebody that's like a punk and has no pride.
Yes, exactly. But this won't be the beginning of me talking about Overwatch every week, but I will probably be talking about Overwatch next week as I dive a little bit more into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I do want to check out. There's a lot of, there's a couple people on my friends list that are playing it, and it's another first-person shooter. Do I really want to get into a first-person shooter games as a service? No, but it won, years ago, 2015, 2016. It won Game of the Year awards when it came out. Like it carries some substantial.
And it's also a potential comeback story for Overwatch.
Absolutely,
not an underdog story, but just a comeback story.
Right. So, all right. Is that it for you?
Yeah, that is it.
All right. So we're going to skip the questions today. We need a little bit more questions, a little bit more diversity, some new listeners, like viewers to maybe ask some questions. I mean, we're getting a lot of the same, some repeat questions. So again, if you think of anything gaming related, not gaming related, family related, that we can try to answer, or, like we goof around, but like going back to food or what we like to do outside of gaming, like those are all like on the table. Like if we think a question is off limits, then maybe we'll message you privately or something like that. But, ask away. Worst case scenarios, your question doesn't make it on the show. Michael, I think, has depleted his document of copy and pasted questions.
Yeah, we got some questions this week that they're going to be put to that doc just because we were running long this week. So the questions that were asked by like Matt and Stefan.
But we would love to kind of grow that doc back out again,
yeah.
And have it be a little bit more versatile names. So please don't be shy. Please leave a review for the show. Please leave a question. Share the show with somebody. Just pop something in Facebook, jump in the Discord, ask a question, tweet at us. I got more tweets about me saying that I can see my breath in video games are coming than I would anticipated this week when we talked about it last week. So that was always fun. I love that little interaction. I try to keep up with it as best as I can. So as best as we can. I know Michael's pretty good about responding to people that tweet at him or tag him in tweets in reference to something as well. So he does have he's got kind of a banker hours job now, so sometimes he disappears for 8 hours at a time, which is totally fine. He's growing up. I can still putz on my phone at work sometimes when I step away from a customer. So.
Yeah. Me at work, when I get time by myself, I just take a deep breath and go, okay, back out there.
I'll be on a conference call that I'm half paying attention to, and I'll start looking at like Facebook and Twitter. So. All right, so you can follow us on Twitter at Digital Days Pod. You can follow Michael at the first MJC, just after 5 p.m. Central Time. You can follow myself at Good Dave Hunt. We got a Facebook group and a Discord server. Please go ahead and join those if you so choose. Patreon is there as well, patreon.com/digitaldaysgaming. Like I said at the beginning of the show, we are working on some year 3 stuff, some things that maybe celebrate it possibly. We're still kind of working through the kinks on that. So with that in mind, I hope everyone has a great week and keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya.